What's going on, guys? We're back. We're racing. We're talking F1. We've got the opening round of the season just around the corner. As you can see on Friday, the 15th of March at UK time, 1 o'clock to 2:30 in the morning, we're going to see F1 cars around Albert Park. So it's going to be really exciting to see what teams start to slowly unleash, let the cat out of the bag and see where the pecking order is starting to line up on the grid, shall we say. So practice 2 is going to take place Friday morning at 5 to 6:30. We move into Saturday. We've got practice 3 at 3 to 4 o'clock in the morning. Qualifying. This is where we're going to see everyone's cards laid out. This is at 6 o'clock in the morning till 7 o'clock UK time. Do not miss out. That's going to be an epic battle for pole position. Hart says, I want Lewis to do it, but at the same time, I think Ferrari have got this in the bag. I think they'll get a front row lockout, if truth be told. And we move into the race on Sunday morning. It's going to be 10 past 5 until about 10 past 7. We're going to have the first race of the championship. Who's going to come out on top? Who's going to finish the race? Who's going to have reliability issues? And what's it going to be like in turn 1 with these new spec cars? How is it going to fan out? I think there's going to be a lot of carbon fiber. I don't know what your opinions on it are. But so quite a substantial change coming into the first round is that Ferrari, they've dropped the Mission Winnow livery that we've seen in testing. It's not being carried over to Australia because of strict tobacco licensing issues. So they've dropped it just as a precaution, I think, and they've just used it to make a little tribute for the anniversary there. The SF90, the logo on the top of the car looks quite nice, I must say, better than the Mission Winnow anyway. So great to see that, see what it looks like in real life when it goes around at Anger at Albert Park in this coming weekend. Something which is quite disturbing, which I've been playing on my mind a lot, is Mexico, Germany, Great Britain, Italy, and Spain all don't have a deal for 2020. So they've all got this race this year, but after that, there's no certainty that we're going to see any of them. And the German Grand Prix is always a good one. We've seen that last year. Great Britain, I love going to it. It's a home venue. It's got such history to it. The iconic Monza, I don't see us losing Monza, to be quite honest with you. But and then there's Spain, Catalonia itself, question marks over all of them, because what the tracks are basically saying is it's way too much money. Formula One have sucked so much out of it now. We can't afford to do it. There needs to be a compromise. Are Liberty Media willing to do that? It remains to be seen. Be interesting if they can get some agreements, at least some of these tracks. The Mexican Grand Prix has not been on for too long, so that would be quite a big hammer blow. Talking about Mercedes, they could change their aero concept by the Spanish Grand Prix. So it's going to be interesting how this first couple of rounds shake out in terms of the pecking order. So what they're basically saying is, if something like the Alfa Romeo sort of Ferrari spec concept of that front wing design is more favorable, that by the time the flyaway races are finished and they come back to Europe, that hopefully they'll be able to have modified their car. They'll still be on the back foot, of course, compared to Ferrari, but it already seems like they're contemplating that, keeping that maybe something in the pipeline, for after hours, just to work on, just to bring that concept up to speed if they do need to. So it's going to be really interesting. What understanding of these regulations is going to come out the best? Are we going to see that Alfa Romeo, that quite crazy concept? Is it going to work, or is it just not really going to give the performance that it really wants to get in that outwash effect around the front tire? So something which has been brought in, it feels like a bit of a last minute kind of decision by the strategists of F1, is to bring in this fastest lap point. And basically they're only saying, yeah, you can have a point for the fastest lap of the race. However, you got to finish in the top 10. So I don't really understand the logic. It could create great drama, especially in the midfield pack. You see a couple of teams, bolt on the softest compound available and get out there towards the end of the race and really scrap it out for the fastest lap of the race. If there's, if they're just plodding around, it might be good and, well worth it for these lower teams. But I think what you're going to see is particularly Ferrari, they're going to get the fastest lap point, if we call it that. Most of the time, Mercedes and probably the likes of Red Bull, it's not going to go to really anyone else. So it's a pretty pointless thing. Interesting. If you finish outside, so if I'm 11th, I get fastest lap of the race. Does that mean no one gets it? Because yeah, I think that would make sense. No one gets it then. It would only be the fairest way to manage this. Let me know your thoughts on this point. It feels like just a bit of a knee-jerk reaction to some, they're wanting them to fresh up the image or just create a bit more interest. I don't really get that decision. So, according to news here, Red Bull have fast-tracked some updates, which they was planning for the second or third round of the season. They're now going to be brought forward to Albert Park. So it looks like they've done some cracking work, the Red Bull chaps, and they're going to have a major update on the aero side coming into the first round of the season. So I think there's a feel-good factor at the minute around the Red Bull team, and they're really going to push forward now. Max is pretty much the number one driver. They've got a captain to pilot their ship now, and I think Pierre Gasly is going to play pretty much number two role. I think there was a bit of conflict of interest with Danny Rick against Max Verstappen. So I think that's why you've seen Ricciardo seen the team favour Max a lot, like they've done with Sebastian Vettel of past. So that's why he's jumped ship and he's gone across into the Renault team, and he can be the boss, the race winner, which walks into that team and is the real superstar. So not a bad decision, I don't think, by both parties. I think it's brought greater harmony amongst the Red Bull team. And of course, I think we're going to see the Honey Badger a bit more happy overall. So yeah, here we can see an article on it. Danny Rick saying he's right to move out of Max's shadow, and he can really emerge as his own talent, his own champion in waiting, we do hope. Of course, it's his home Grand Prix, so we're going to look at Danny Rick in great interest. Hopefully, he has a good outing at his home Grand Prix. So what's your thoughts, boys and girls? Do you think that we're going to see a Honda engine power a car to a race win this year? Of course, it's most likely going to be in a Red Bull if they do win a race. But you never know how conditions may be one day, and the Toro Rosso get right up there. We've seen a Toro Rosso propel Sebastian Vettel to the front of a grid in mixed conditions and deliver him his maiden victory. So you never know what happens in the season. But I think there is potential. I think at the likes of Monaco, you're going to see the Red Bull come alive. And so they're more twisty circuits which really suit the shorter wheelbase, the high rake nature of their car. I think they're going to fare well. I think Max Verstappen will get a couple under his belt. I don't expect any more than a couple of race wins, to be quite honest with you. So Bottas coming out very bullish. I'm going to beat everyone this year. Get in my way, I'm going to beat you. That's what he's saying. I'm going to beat everyone. So he's coming out. He really wants to stamp his foot firmly down, not his fist like Toto, and basically say, I'm not a number two driver. I want to win races. This is what I come here for. So let me have a fair fight with Lewis Hamilton. And if not, give me some preference over him, most likely. He wants to feel a bit of love from the team. And he's basically just expressed in that with this statement, if you can call it that. So going to be interesting. I think it's make or break. I think it's going to be, his contract's going to be decided probably in the early part of this season before we have the summer break. They're going to be eyeing the driver for the following year. Of course, they want to tie that up. I would love to see the likes of George Russell or Ocon take up that seat. I think that would be a good shout. So here again, we've got Toto Wolff explaining how Mercedes have a proper fight on their hands for this coming calendar year, and that Ferrari are firmly in P1 and 2 by the look of it in terms of car performance from what they've analysed when you've taken the calculated fuel loads out of the car. Everyone's pretty much said amongst the paddock that Ferrari are there, probably about 4 tenths up the road, potentially up to the 4 tenths, maybe minimum about 3 tenths, I would say. So it's going to be interesting. The first race of the year, I think Ferrari really put the pressure on in terms of development. It's going to be interesting, the in-season development. How are they going to match up? Because we've seen Mercedes start with a weak car, a bit of a diva, as it's been known to be called, and really, propel themselves with their R&D throughout the year, bringing little pieces here and there, looking at other concepts and copying them. So we might see that up to round 4 when we get to the likes of Catalunya, etc. And then we can see some real updates, and satisfaction being able to switch the tires on. That's something that Mercedes have always struggled on, is really switching the tire on, getting it in the right operating window. And when it does, it's unbeatable. It's there. It's as good as anything. But yeah, it's a bit temperamental, shall we say. So Lewis Hamilton's come out and he said that he expects the midfield to be a lot closer to the front runners. And by the front runners, of course, we mean Ferrari, Mercedes, and the likes of Red Bull. So this is going to throw a lot of variables into the mix when it comes to strategy. You're going to see that, especially at like Albert Park, where it's crucial that once you make your pit stop, that you come out into free air and that you can really utilize the extra grip from your tires and propel yourself and get that extra advantage amongst other people who haven't pitted, for instance. So he expects the midfield to be closer. So that's going to cause some traffic. It's going to be harder to get into certain pockets. If you're a front running team and you want to make an early pit stop, you're not going to have that luxury by the sounds of things. So looking at this beautiful concept here, this is like a 2021 sort of imagination of what the F1 cars with the aero and all of the car regulations, how they want this car to look. And it looks quite stunning. I don't know what your opinion is of the future. It does look very artificial, very alien-esque, but it also looks very sleek, elegant, and efficient, a bit like a fighter jet. It looks really mad, really mean. So basically, by changing the aero regulations, the whole car concept, they hope to reduce 5 times the amount of dirty air. And by dirty air, we don't mean exhaust air, we mean turbulent air, which has come off the car that we're driving and affecting the cars behind. Because basically, from the previous year, for instance, if I was following you round a corner, I'd be losing up to 50% of the downforce on the car. So of course, the car's gonna oversteer, understeer. You're gonna have a nightmare. So this is what they really tried to change. What we've seen this year, 2019, is a bit of a compromise. They're just experimenting with different things, moving different parts around, like the barge boards, for instance, and also making them restrictions to the front wing, just to see how that works and how the teams are probably going to try and exploit it as well. They're probably trying to size up all the different manufacturers, see what crazy contraptions they come out with and try and hen that in as much as possible. Someone that I've been really, really impressed with in testing was Alexander Albon. He's been really getting his head down, getting used to the F1 car. He said it was a very big shock once he first got in it. I'm going to really hope that he does well this year. He's an emerging talent, and it's great to see so many new faces in the sport once again. So what do we think of McLaren's chances this year? Are we going to see them take a step forward? I think they're pretty much treading water at the minute. It's going to be a real battle with the likes of Haas, Alfa Romeo. I think they're going to be out of sight when it comes to McLaren. Renault, is their package going to be stronger than McLaren's potentially as well? I think they should be ahead of the Racing Point, definitely the Williams, but I don't see them too far ahead of everyone else. It's going to be interesting how this Honda engine is, how quick the Toro Rosso boys are. I really have high hopes for the Toro Rosso lads this year. Can Carlos Sainz really do what Alonso couldn't and really drag that car up the field? Well, it's not going to be down to Carlos Sainz. It's going to be down to what they serve him. He's a fast enough driver. I'm sure he'll be able to put it where he needs to put it. So thanks for watching, guys. It was just a quick recap. We're really counting down the days now. It's not long till we get some track action. Then we can really get some like live discussion going with the rest of you, get the comments up, etc. Yeah, and we're going to try and mix it up a bit. It's going to be the early hours of the morning. So if you're going to be out watching the race, please do let me know and I'll try and join you. And yeah, we're going to share our thoughts and opinions, which I'm pretty much sure it's going to be an action-packed race. Well, the first lap or so anyway, with these new wider sort of like bigger end plates on the front wings. I think the likes of Grosjean could lose his nose into turn 1, 2 or 3, like we've just seen in the documentary from last year. I think it's going to be really interesting. Let me know your thoughts and opinions. Thanks for watching. See you again soon. Bye bye.